And hello, everyone. This is the, I hope you can see the agenda now. Yes?
Yes, we can.
Cool. So let me see who's here. I'm not sure how else I can make this link any more clear, but there it is. I will paste it into one of the chats. Let's see. How about the Jenkins Getter channel? There you go. So, Jesse, you in particular have something you want to talk about? There we go. Which was, and someone want to talk about JEP 206 as well. Okay. So.
Yes. So the first thing, I just wanted to feel people out about what we should do about these kind of overall JEPs that aren't really proposing something specific. So definitely 300 and 400 are definitely in this category, and I think 203 is also.
Yeah, 203 as well.
That's right, yeah. So 300 is a good example. It's the overview of the mission and goal JEP of Jenkins Evergreen. So, and then 400 was Jenkins X, and 302 was talking about the Blue Ocean.
203.
203, sorry, my bad. A little bit of dyslexia.
Awesome. Yeah, it's Blue Ocean extensibility, but right. It's umbrella JEP for the JEPs to be submitted.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically my question is, do we want to keep on doing these, or should we use SIGs for that purpose, where we're trying to, you know, define a set of people interested in a given topic and set out a large scope of work that would cover multiple JEPs?
I do not think that these proposals are orthogonal, because SIGs are definitely helpful for the discussion, but these JEPs could act as a declaration of intent. So they could be useful to declare the plan. By the way, Liam, it makes sense if you present yourself, because when I speak, the screen is not shared.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say, these JEPs are good declarations of intent. So they document what is the general idea.
There we go.
Will be documented in downstream JEPs. And for such a purpose, these JEPs are fine. But I'm concerned that all three JEPs mentioned have a standards category. I would rather treat them as informational JEPs.
Yeah, so that's one question. And then even when we're talking about the statement of intent, so we've also been using SIGs for that. So for cloud native, we don't have an umbrella JEP, as far as I know, but we do have a SIG, and it has an overview page that describes basically the same kinds of things the umbrella JEPs do, which is why we're trying to do the whole thing and what are the particular areas that we want to cover.
Just to provide some context about cloud native SIG, there was a JEP proposal, but after some discussion, it was decided that we are not going to have it as JEP. We still have a description on the SIG page. There was also a blog post which provides more detail. So yeah, this blog post could be posted as declaration of intent JEP if you want. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure what does it contributes to the community.
So I linked to that aborted PR to have an umbrella JEP for JEP.
Yeah, and I'll find the blog post then.
Well, so here's one thing to look at. The SIGs are, we have this large project. This is our intent. We're covering this area. There's a lot of different things going on. It can be very vague and sort of, or sort of broad, right? The mission and goals JEPs, even when they're talking about something relatively broad, there's still, I mean, like, for example, the JEP 300 actually does have, here is a design. There is some degree of design choices being made there. This is our intent. We're going to have these particular areas that are going to be part of this project. The SIGs are like feature area or larger, initiative, perhaps. The JEPs, even the mission and goal JEPs, would be more targeted to, there's going to be a beginning, middle, and end of this thing, right? If it's an ongoing, like, might be, sort of, there's more sort of a hand wavy, like, we'll be doing a lot of this for a while. That's fine for a SIG, but you wouldn't want that in a JEP, right?
Well, then in that case, we should resurrect the JEP for cloud native, because there is a particular scope of work that we expect for that.
Do we expect it to end, and then we will mark ourselves as done and say, okay, we're done with cloud native?
At least for this planned set of stuff. Yeah.
Will we no longer have a cloud native SIG? Will there be no?
I would rather expect to have a JEP for pluggable storage, because it's feasible amount of work, or not feasible, but at least it's scoped a bit. Cloud native SIG is, of course, a never-ending story. If we do pluggable storage, there will be high availability stories, whatever canary updates and other things we have in this list.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. At least for the pluggable storage work that we're actually doing at the moment, yeah, there is a specific expected set of things that are going into that, which is pretty much what the current SIG overview lists.
So yeah. So my thought is that even at the mission and goals JEP level, there's still a kind of a scoped set of, there's a scoped target that you can talk about, or there are design decisions being made. That's what I would say. I agree that there's some overlap. There's certainly going to be cases where, but I think yeah, I don't think we would have a cloud native JEP, right? That's like, wow, how much can you stuff into that? Everything. There's a lot of space in there. But that's just me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And then there's also the selection of delegates, which you would expect to also follow. I mean, basically, there's no formalization right now for the fact that umbrella JEPs even exist, much less how we're supposed to use them and how they relate to SIGs. And then there's this stuff on selecting delegates, so link to that.
Yeah. So
yeah,
2 weeks ago, sorry, like.
Yeah, so you're talking about the JEP 9?
Yeah, I was about to talk about it.
Okay.
So selection of delegates, there's this table of initial, here they're called initial JEPs. And then the BDFL delegate that corresponds to it. So I mean, this seems like if we had a formal notion of what a umbrella JEP was, then part of that would be an indication of who the default delegate was for every JEP in this category.
So 2 weeks ago, we were talking with Liam about introducing relation between SIGs and JEPs. So one of the topics was moving discussions to and making SIGs explicit there as a separate table, and maybe even making SIGs be default delegates instead of particular people. But yeah, I have an action item to start a discussion for that. But I guess your concern could be addressed if we say that for whatever cloud native story, we say that cloud native SIG just acts as a default delegate and decides how it makes decisions.
I don't think you can have a SIG as a delegate, because then who's in charge of making decisions for the SIG? I mean,
and each SIG decides how it does on its own. By default, we expect SIG chair to be the delegate or something like that. But for example, we can say that, for example, in platform SIG, we vote instead of having default delegate.
So for the cloud native SIG, it's Liz Carlos as lead is the name given.
Yeah, Carlos is chair of cloud native SIG now.
Is the idea to abstract away from specific people if the chair changes?
For me, yes, it would be the idea, or maybe preventing by design bottlenecks. So, for example, SIG may define its own process for making decisions, and it would do the job.
So I don't mind this exactly, but it seems like there's this has the potential to become like, okay, so each SIG does this their own way, and when someone wants to propose something or do anything else, they basically have to relearn a new culture. So if I go to the platform SIG, you might end up having a SIG that's based on, okay, we just do a majority vote and whoever wins, if you guys don't like it, suck it up and deal. And then this other SIG has some other way of making their decisions. And it seems like I mean, I understand wanting to have groups be able to sort of self-manage, but having a core sort of way that we make decisions that we all can agree on seems to me more like, otherwise you end up with confusion and chaos. We're back to chaos again.
Yeah, I think it's clearer if there's just a particular person that Kosuke's defined for that area, and if there's some reason, I mean, if they're off on extended leave or something, then
Kosuke can step in and do stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I don't really want to, and I didn't look at this too carefully, like, because I'm not necessarily the one driving this, but I wouldn't actually say cloud native SIG as the initial JEP here. It's actually just the area would be cloud native, like, which could have any number of things, right?
Well, it's tricky.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, today we had a discussion whether configuration as code is cloud native SIG or not. Yeah, these topics, in this case, it's not a problem because JEP201 is explicitly mentioned in the list.
Right.
But yeah, there may be some cases. So I think that the best approach is that we start defining something. For example, JEP sponsor may explicitly say that he wants it to be discussed in a SIG. So for example, how we did for cloud native SIG JEPs, all of them have discussions to referring the SIG.
Right, which is part of the processes that exist. That's good. Okay.
Right, and this thing plus BDFL delegate, which is who is set as default. It sets the clear path how we establish relation between SIGs and JEPs even now. Maybe not ideal, but at least it does the job.
Yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable to me.
Allow what? Discussions too? Oh, yeah. What I wanted to say.
Well, okay, so allow the discussion to point to a SIG, which we do, right?
Sorry, I messed it up.
No, that's probably me accepting some of your changes before you were done. Anyways.
Yeah, so I think that if JEP sponsor knows in which SIG he wants to discuss this JEP, I think we have no problem even now.
Okay. The other point that you were asking about was the SIGs decide separately on BDFL delegate process, and we're not.
I don't have strong opinion about that, so I think it's something worth discussing. But yeah, maybe you're right that having a single process across JEPs is preferable. I mean, SIGs can discuss and agree. Doesn't really matter who clicks the button to accept the JEP in such case.
Okay, cool. And, yeah, what? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure there was any particular conclusion for the question I originally asked, which is, do we want to continue doing umbrella JEPs? You seem to indicate yes. So then, I mean, these seem to be registered as standards JEPs right now, which doesn't really make sense. Do we want to use informational? Does there need to be a new JEP type?
There might need to be a new JEP type. The reason why they're not informational is because there's actual design decisions being made in these, right? There are decisions being made here. They're not that would be better to require some consensus on, right?
Yeah, what would be a better name? Something like roadmap JEP? Yeah. I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, or umbrella, or you used the term mission and goal before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that informational would be actually okay. I mean, informational can be anything. And then you understand from the content, what is it?
That's true.
I don't really see.
The difficulty, at least with the way that things are described currently, is that the informational JEPs are don't require they don't require consensus. They're explicitly mentioned as you can just sort of throw these up here, which, hey, I guess that's a fair way to go. I'm concerned that it would be I guess this is
I don't understand why informational JEPs don't require consensus. So I understand why they do not require a reference implementation, etc., but they still need discussion, and they still need BDFL delegate, and they still need acceptance.
Fair. Okay.
So,
it's I remember from there was a part of the JEP 1 that actually talked about this, and again, some of these things are like, well, that's the way it came, the way the Python folks wrote it, and we didn't really go and change the details on it, right? So
types.
Right now it says their users and implementers are free to ignore informational JEPs.
Well, it's their own business. But yeah, for example, if you want to define priorities for cloud native SIG, having an informational JEP is okay. Because implementers can ignore them. For example, they can implement other pluggable storage if they feel reasonable according to their own priorities. Why not?
Is that really how we want it to go?
Yeah, because I mean, I think, for example,
Mhm.
for cloud native, the JEP 202 would be a particular thing that we're doing with artifact storage, and we expect, this is an actual standard in Jenkins core. This is how you replace default artifact storage. That's not something optional. I mean, you can decline to implement that, obviously, but we accepted that this is how we expect artifact storage to be. But we don't block people from doing other efforts that involve the network that are not aligned with the overall goals of pluggable storage. Right? We just don't.
The JEPs don't block anyone from doing that anyways. But it would definitely be, if someone came along and did some other version of that, you'd probably want to, there'd be some like, hey, why don't we try and get these things together? Why would you have two different?
Obviously, if there is a pull request to Jenkins core which re-implements the same artifact manager API, we will likely reject that unless there is a real good justification. So we won't be.
Yeah, because this is a standards JEP.
Yeah, right.
But we don't foresee, for example, for Evergreen. I mean, we don't. We're not waiting for there to be community consensus on Evergreen. There's no point at which we're going to say, "Oh yeah, Evergreen is finalized." Right? This is just a statement of information about how this particular team is expecting to go about their work and what components they would include in it.
Yeah, right. So it was their own decision to keep JEPs, but if they have decided to keep it in the documentation, it would be also fine.
Well, I mean, I guess my question would be, what about for something like configuration as code, where there was quite a bit of back and forth in the original discussion? Would you be?
But it wound up being, but most of the actual decisions wound up being punted out of 201. We just said, okay, yeah, we're accepting 201, but then we're deferring the actual decisions to another JEP.
Right.
Which is also a solution.
Whichever one that was. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, so JEP 201 is still not an informational JEP because it defines standards like YAML specification. I'm not sure what's left there, but yeah, it's still a standard JEP in some way. So it's just a plugin's self-documentation. Let's put it so, but yeah, okay, it's a valid JEP.
But would you have been okay with that just being informational and the having it be simply that team just declaring we're doing this, and not being perfectly fine, just not taking your feedback?
Well, not taking feedback, it's not acceptable for any kind of JEP, even if Python or Protos does that. But yeah, regarding the rest, if it was informational JEP, which would say that, okay, here are our priorities, we want to work on that, I think it would be fine.
Okay. I'm just sort of throwing out some questions here in terms of like having them. We could create a new type of JEP. So the question.
I think 201 is a kind of a weird example because it was originally created as if it were going to be a self-contained JEP, but then it turned out there were enough controversial things that they wound up filing follow-on JEPs rather than editing the original one.
Right.
So yeah, we could take a realistic example. So what Jesse was talking about cloud native thing. So let's think about pluggable storage. We had a discussion 2 years ago, Jenkins All Contributor Summit. What would be the priorities for the stories, and what exactly do we need to implement? So if somebody decides to document this priority list and the list of types and jobs we need to deliver, it would be a good informational job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
Because
I would just move some of the description out of the cloud native JEP into out of the cloud native SIG overview into an informational JEP, giving those details, basically.
Yeah, so what we could leave in a cloud native SIG, then we could just say pluggable storage and refer to the JEP. Because currently I don't like current state of cloud native SIG anyway, because it describes several pluggable storage types and then spends something like one sentence on other possible activities.
Right.
So we could refactor that for sure. But I don't see any problem with the current process. Informational JEP, done.
Okay. Should some of the existing JEPs like 300 be recategorized as informational?
Well,
I think so. I mean, if the JEP has been already accepted as standard, okay. But if not, we can change the category.
And is there any guidance on whether this like X00 numbering scheme is going to continue to be a thing, or was that just a one-off?
That was just convenience on my part. That was some of those were some of the first JEPs filed, so it was simply like, well, let's just put these in. Since we know there's going to be some follow-ons to these, we'll make it easy to group them together.
So currently
that's not,
we have,
required.
So currently we have starting from 0 for community JEPs, starting from 200 for technical changes, then 300 evergreen and 400 Jenkins X.
Yeah, and there's only one there, so.
Yeah, I actually have no idea what is the plan about that.
Yeah.
Because it seemed to be like a JEP for the JEP.
In any case, I don't have a view into that, into the plan there, so, well, it sounds like these are all interesting questions and points to be raised. This is the kind of thing that we should probably put on the dev list as well. In terms of recategorizing the JEPs, that would be something that you definitely want to raise on the list. And I mean, if Kosuke were here, we could sort of talk with the BDFL about that. But I don't know. Again, I don't have any. There's no process specifically around this, so it's kind of up to you guys.
I think the process is straightforward. JEPs are submitted to get feedback, and there is discussions 2 section which describes how to provide feedback. So instead of creating one thread for all cases, I would rather provide feedback in particular way for JEP 300, JEP 400, so that the sponsors process this feedback. Because it seems to be more reasonable than a single thread.
I don't know. We are talking. It's up to you, but it seems like we're talking about the overall process of how we're going to organize these things. So, but again, that's totally your guys' call.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do something.
Okay. So. And I'm not trying to be dense here. I'm actually like, okay, so what exactly did you guys do? Are you guys interested in doing?
Well, at least for our SIG, I mean, I think we agreed that we would like to have an informational JEP, which would be a single place where we could point people to the SIG, point people to the overall intent of the work and the overarching goals, and point to the particular JEPs. So 202,
I think it's
210, 212, 206. I think all of those, I guess, would fall under that category.
Yeah, I
I'm not
think
sure
it's on
how
the pluggable storage.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how you mark that. We'd have to put a references section or something because there's no.
You can set a dependency on a job.
Yeah.
And in informational job, you can just keep a table with references to other jobs. Because informational job can be updated if needed.
Sure.
Okay, so informational jet for pluggable storage.
And
Or at least those three. I guess we decided 201 is a little bit fuzzier, and we would just leave it as is.
so regarding the rest of the jobs, the only problem is 300 because it's already accepted. So I would rather keep it as is.
Well, I don't think we're making any material change. This is really just about changing the presentation. So.
Okay. Cool. All right. All right. I think that, again, like changing 300 to an informational, again, we can, it is possible to change accepted JEPs, right? It's not, it's just, it's more like we need to go through the process of making sure that it's agreed on, right?
Basically just sign off from Tyler that
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I believe.
Anything else? And then same thing for, so the mission and goals JEP. So instead of mission and goals, we'll be using informational as that sort of structure, right?
Right.
I can type today. Cool. Great.
I hope clear some stuff up.
Yeah. Still have on my to-do list to create an FAQ that'll sort of cover some of these, not specifically part of the process, but here's here's what we suggest kind of things, and that will be another informational job most likely. So, but it's on my list to do. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Anyways, so are we moving on to 206?
Yeah, I guess probably be quick. I just want to know what's going on since the list is draft. But in fact, the code has been merged and released, and there's no BDFL delegate. So,
well, if you want to send a mail to the dev list and then CC Kosuke, and okay, so let's see. So we have any pull requests for this?
Yeah, they're all merged and released.
Okay, so, but I mean, pull requests for the JEP, there's nothing here, right?
No.
Okay, so you're the sponsor. What I'd say is just create a pull request with the change to accepted, and tag Kosuke on it to get him to take a look at this and review it and decide if it's accepted. I mean, I'm assuming what you're saying though is that the work is basically done. It might even go straight to
finalized, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, just all we need is a pull request, and then BDFL will look at it. Basically, as sponsor, you're the one that should trigger the the review. So that's the way that goes.
Right.
Cool. Anything else?
Well, for me.
Okay. Daniel? Nope.
Daniel,
He dropped off. Okay, great. Well, thanks. It's been productive. and we get 25 minutes back. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.